See if I can get this to work. Did I ever tell you about that time I was in a band in Tucson in the late 1970s? The band was called Summer Dog, and we were on a Western tour. We'd been working our way up through Northern California, through Oregon and Washington up to Seattle. And then we were coming back down. We came through Spokane, Washington, and there's a club there where we were booked called Ahab's Whale. Ahab's Whale in Spokane, Washington, Eastern Washington. And it was one of these clubs where it had a kind of a linoleum dance floor and a stage that was about 3 or 4 feet above the dance floor itself. So we're way up high, looking down onto this big dance floor, big linoleum dance floor. And then over here, the floor was carpeted, and where they had the tables and folks sitting around drinking and stuff. The focus of the story is I was playing on a new fiddle that I had gotten not long before that tour. I had, make a long story short, I had abandoned the fiddle, the old Irish fiddle that I had been playing for like 4 years, solid. Played every gig, every Summer Dog gig I played on that Irish fiddle. But things changed in my own personal life, and I felt the need to sell the violin and raise some money. I put it up for sale, and much to my surprise, a doctor, a surgeon on the east side of Tucson, responded to the ad, and I went over there with the old Irish fiddle, and we made a deal. I sold it to him for $2,500, and let's see, what was the deal we made? Yeah, he gave me $2,500 plus a very, very fine French bow, French violin bow made by Otto Hoyer in Paris. He was a German feller, but he worked in Paris for quite a number of years and was trained under in the Parisian school of violin bow making. A very, very fine bow. But what was unusual about the bow was it was quite a bit heavier than any of the bows that I had been used to playing on. But it was a much better bow than I had been used to playing on. Very, very fine stuff. Well, we were playing the gig at Ahab's Whale, and I was trying out my new violin, of course, which was very much different than the old Irish fiddle that I'd been playing on. It was a totally different animal. And had the old Otto Hoyer bow in my hand. And I did at one point in the song, I did a really strong upstroke, with the bow. And that goddamn bow just left my hand. It just launched itself out of my hand. And I just watched it go up into the air, and it came down. And goddamn, if it didn't hit, we had these monitor speakers that were angled back and pointed up at us, so that the top of the monitor cabinet was like a V shape, in relation to the floor. I'll be goddamned if that bow didn't hit the top of that cabinet just exactly right, so that it created this sort of like what would you call that kind of effect? But basically, the bow launched itself off of the monitor cabinet. It didn't hit. It didn't hit right in the middle of the bow, but hit a little bit to one side of the middle, such that it just came down, hit the speaker, and that launched it way out through the air, out into the middle of the dance floor, which was full of dancers. And I thought, it's game over. It's fucking game over for that bow, man. But I watched in horror as the bow hit the dance floor, a linoleum dance floor, because it didn't like break clean in half, or the head of the bow didn't bust clean off. I knew that at least there might be some hope, but nobody appeared to be aware of the fact that this valuable stick had just launched itself into the middle of the floor. The bow was being kicked back and forth between the dancers. They were doing what's called country swing dancing, and the bow was getting kicked back and forth. It was like a goddamn what do you call it? The pinball machine. Where the balls, they hit a bumper and then the bumper launches it across the way to the other side, and then the ball hits another bumper and it launches it back this way. And the goddamn fucking bow was being it was exactly like that. It was just being kicked from couple to couple around on the dance floor. I leaped off the end of the stage, just fucking leaped from 4 feet up down onto the dance floor and just muscled my way out into the middle of the floor. And I bent over and I grabbed that bow and I got off the dance floor and I brought it back up on stage and did a cursory inspection real quickly, and much to my amazement, there was not even an identifiable scratch on the whole fucking bow. I couldn't find any evidence of any scrapes or scratches or splits or anything. It was like a fucking miracle. And but right before I managed to get to the bow, I was like elbowing my way through the dancers to get out there to grab it. I noticed that there was a this bearded hippie dude with his gal. I was scoping on the bow, and I saw his foot. He took his foot, and it appeared entirely to be a conscious act on his part. He took his foot and he kicked the bow over. He kicked it over. He made a kicking motion with his foot and kicked the bow almost to the edge of the whole dance floor. So that it was actually, by the time I got to the bow, it was actually mostly out of harm's way. And that's probably what saved the bow. If the bow had remained in traffic, it would have been a goner, more than likely, sooner or later. So I grabbed the bow, went back up on stage, inspected it. It seemed to be fine. We finished our set. We took a break. I went down and I found that guy, that dancer, and I walked up to him and I said, "Man, let me shake your hand, man. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You saved my violin bow from complete annihilation. And when you kicked it to the edge of the dance floor." And he looked at me with this completely stone cold blank look on his face. And he said, sorry, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yeah, man, when you kicked my bow off the dance floor, you saved it, Oh man, I didn't even know it was there. It must have looked like I did, but I had no clue. I didn't do anything, So I thought that was rather peculiar, because it sure seemed like a conscious act on his part. But you know what? Weird shit happens all the time. So so that's the story of the Otto Hoyer French bow, which was saved from sure destruction by some act of God, I suppose, at the old Ahab's Whale in Spokane, Washington. This would have been about 1980. 1980. I asked somebody decades later. It must have been in the early 2000s or somewhere around there. If they had ever, someone from Washington State, if they had ever heard of a club called Ahab's Whale, and said, "Oh yeah, man, that bar, it's still in business in Spokane, apparently at that time. Of course, that's now already 20 or more years ago. But I haven't tried to look it up to see if it's still in business to this day. But you know what? Stranger things have happened. Yeah, the that new fiddle I was playing on, and the Otto Hoyer bow was not a good combination for me. It just wasn't working. Everything felt foreign. That fiddle had a real kind of a sharp, cutting edge kind of a sound, kind of incisive, and not a very pretty tone. Although it had a cutting quality to it, so it mic'd really well, but that, along with the Hoyer bow, was not a good combination. It wasn't that much longer after that period of time that actually the whole goddamn band had just sort of dissolved, and it's almost as if someone had thrown a nuclear device right into the middle of our band and just blew us all up. One of us ended up down in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, for like years. Another one of the band ended up in somewhere in Vermont or New Hampshire. And then, of course, Chip Curry ended up in San Jose, California. And I ended up in St. Louis, Missouri. I mean, we just literally exploded and went every which way imaginable. Got as far away from each other as humanly possible. God damn. I don't know, I guess for a little while there, we sure did have our fun. But, and we made some really good music and put a lot of smiles on a lot of faces. And recorded some pretty amazing music, at least on a handful of tracks. We created some really cool shit. Of course, there's other tracks that are quite lackluster and don't even qualify for honorable mention, as it were, in my humble opinion. But that's life, Who gives a shit, There's a little jumper spider over here who's been watching him scurry about, and he's been nabbing little tiny insects and consuming them, and then he consumes the juices, then drops them and goes on to the next one. A lot of little bugs have come in, are all over the walls and all around my desk and around the lamp. But I digress. So, folks, oh, god dang. I sure hope everyone is doing well out there. Things are really getting strange in our world. Very strange. There's so much a tragedy and destruction. So much weather warfare underway by the the motherfucking assholes in charge. Um, uh, it's just gotten. I'm at a loss for words. I really am. I'm at a loss for words. But what I can say, I'm heartbroken on so many levels. I'm absolutely heartbroken on what is happening in this world. I don't know, maybe the Great Reset is about to happen, and the slate will be wiped clean, and we will emerge from the Kali Yuga into a new age, a new age of glory and enlightenment and peace and compassion and plenitude. We can only hope. God bless you all. Bye-bye.